artist in the corner, and then this is going to be happening all night. He's going to donate his art for the silent auction. He is Diné in Navajo, and he is, his name is Don Ed, and he has been in Durango, Colorado for the past 25 years. He calls this place his home. He is an artist, father, husband, live outside of Bayfield, and he's married to one of our amazing poets, Esther Belin. And together they have 4 daughters. With that in mind, I want to welcome Esther. Esther Belin is, well, her bio goes really big and really profound to me, because she's a writer. She's actually live in Durango. Let me go right here. She's among myriad of indigenous peoples on the planet to survive in urbanized areas. She's a graduate from the following institutions: UC Berkeley, IAIA, Antioch University, and she considers the following locations her homeland: LA, Durango, Inerkeja, and I say it wrong, I'm pretty sure. Her writing and art grows from and is an offering to the collective humanity. Let's welcome Esther.
Yad shidene do shik Esther Belin Yunashia Loge dene Nishlan Twitter chitney bashes chain Kitla chitney dashiche the Belin da Shinala. I am, like I was introduced, one of the many hundreds, probably thousands more than that, of Native people who grew up off of their homeland. And part of that, identify as a byproduct of the federal Indian policy called termination and relocation. And that really intersects what we're talking about tonight, this idea of borders, this idea of created lines, objectification, and it's from that place that I write. It's from that place that I am a mother and a wife, and I am able to survive here in this place called Durango. And first off, I really want to thank the people behind the scenes here. I know putting on these type of projects are really a labor of love. And thank you to the Durango Arts Center for allowing this to happen in this space, because I think this type of event is not welcome in a lot of areas. What we have to say and what we stand for and believe in is not welcome in a lot of areas, and a lot of people have died and shed blood and continue to pray for people who are subject to these types of policies. And so I think that's really important to acknowledge that, and like Randall acknowledged as well, when we talk about borders, the Ute people, their reservation, how it was within the state of Colorado and got marginalized severely. And it's, and I have to also acknowledge that this isn't just Ute territory. This is also territory of the Navajo people, Apache, and Comanche. This wasn't just, one area. The Navajo people, I'm sure you all know, we're almost everywhere on the planet. And I don't know if that's just part of our innate ability to adapt and to survive, but we do that really well. And if you're not familiar, what they call the La Plata Mountains over here is one of our directional boundary mountains called the Bensad. It's the northern. And our eastern one is Cisnajine, which is in outside of Alamosa. So Navajo people were here, and we're still here. And so I think it took me about 13 years to really just ground myself in that knowledge, because Durango wasn't welcoming to me and my family, and we really had to make a concerted effort to make this our home. And and in my intro, I grew up in the LA area, so that's also my home as well. So that's part of the relocation process. And then, getting reintroduced to Deneb, which is the land within those boundary mountains. And when we as a society come together with a common belief, especially in this place that we all commonly call the United States, we need to understand that the tactics and strategies and maneuvers that the U.S. uses toward immigrants is not new. Every single indigenous people group within, quote, unquote, the borders of the United States have experienced, and some continue to experience, imprisonment and persecution in their own homeland. And such as the way, what they call settler colonial law. And many indigenous peoples around the globe continue to suffer persecution and imprisonment that is justified by law. And since we're here in the state of Colorado, numerous massacres and the intentional rape and slaughter of women and children is also allowed within these settler colonial laws. And if you're not familiar, the Sand Creek Massacre took place in 1864 within what is now Colorado, the state of Colorado. And it occurred after peace talks. So there was already a discussion, there was already a dialogue, there was already an agreement. And then the massacre, the killing mostly of women and children and elders. The troops burned down that village, mutilated the dead, carrying off the body parts, mostly are well-known, documented female genitalia as trophies. And in contrast, it's pretty common in all of our history books that tell the story of how tribal people welcomed. Tribal people went out of their way to accommodate and house and feed what we call the settlers now. The ones who came here and settled with their colonial mindset and created their laws and their structures and their urban planning, just rearranging our whole cultural landscape. That some tribal people, why they struggle is because the land doesn't look as how it is in our memory, as how it is in our stories. They've changed that. It has been changed, and it continues to be changed. And I think if we don't talk about it, then we will forget. And that's part of why I write, that's part of why I do my art. So when I think about justice, we really need to realize that we're not fighting a physical battle. It's actually a spiritual one. The human spirit, the God deity spirit, based on my tribal stories. I wholeheartedly believe that the only reason I'm here, the only reason I'm able to talk to you and heal from all the historic trauma is because my ancestors prayed for me, for this very moment, to give me the ability to talk, to give me the place and the venue, and for you all to hear. And like the speaker before, for action. That's my gift to you now, is the action piece, right? Because as we indigenous people, continue to move forward, we're dealing with all of the grief and loss daily. It strengthens us as we heal ourselves, and it gives us vision for the future. As mentioned, I have 4 daughters. They're all amazing artists, amazing women, young women in their own right, doing their own thing. And it's really actually fun to see them take off in their own direction. And I'm really privileged to be able to have had them in my life for as long as I have. Most of them are gone, and doing things and carrying off all of those prayers that were said for us about our survival. And I have a couple poems. One, when I've been doing a lot of looking back. Coming up is last year was the 150th anniversary of the Navajo Treaty of 1868. And then next week they're having a treaty celebration in Shiprock that I'm going to be part of. And, when I think about what we do as tribal people, and I think about that treaty and learn about that, it just strengthens me even more, because that treaty negotiation was through two different types of translators. So they had the military spoke English only, and they spoke English to a Spanish speaker, and then the Spanish speaker spoke Navajo to the Navajo headman. And when I think about that, I just like two different types of translation, right? That somehow we ended up with our land pretty much intact, because we have the largest reservation. And one of the things, one of our headmen, and I'm going to read a quote from him. This is what inspired this poem. One of the last things he said that was translated was, "I hope to God you will not ask me to go anywhere except my own country. If we go back, we will follow whatever orders you give us. We do not want to go to the right or the left, but straight back to our own land." And it was honored, and I think of all the things that, the evil that has happened, that was honored. We have our land, and for whatever you think of the Navajo Reservation, when you drive through it, it's ours. So this poem is inspired from that idea, and it's an anagram poem. There's this great African-American writer, a poet who does these anagram poems, and that's what I got inspired from. So I'm gonna finish this. I hope to God you will not ask me or my people to send postcard greetings, lamented wind of perfect sunrisings, golden. Yes, we may share the same sun setting, but the in-between hours are hollow. The people fill the void with prayers for help, calling upon the holy ones. Those petitions penetrate and loosen the binds you tried to tighten around our heart, attention blocking the wind like a shell fluttering inside, fluttering inside. And so last year when we had our treaty celebration, so this treaty came as a result of imprisonment. We were detained in a prison camp for 4 years in a location in southern New Mexico called Bosque Redondo. And last year I went out there and I read this other poem. And, like I said, one thing that the Navajo people really do well is adapt. And, a lot of times I think people are ashamed or have some guilt around the English language, but it's a tribal language now. You know, if you ever talk to any Navajo and you hear them, their English is not like everyone else's English. It really is a Navajo English. We've really transformed it into ours. And we have that ability. I think every human does, you know, and so one of the things that I do with my writing is I really embrace that. English is a tribal language, and I go with the premise of how am I as a translator. I've had the privilege of going to all these, you know, institutions for higher learning to study, and you know, so one of the things I like to offer is that information, that it's there for us to kind of recreate in our own way. So this poem is called The Petition of Peacemaking. And it's a sestina, which is an old form of a poem. And I was inspired to write this as a sestina because another Navajo poet, Lucy Tapahanso, she writes sestinas. And when I was talking to her, she was saying it's really interesting because that's like how our songs are. So if any of you have heard any of the Navajo singing or ceremony, it's really repetitious. It's a repetition. And part of it is because you're not going to forget it. You're going to remember it. You learn it young, and you're a walking history book in that sense. And I'm just going to read a few stanzas because it's pretty long. But I really want you to get the idea. So the last 6 words of each stanza get rotated throughout. How can the spine of a synapse misaligned or be removed? And what of the gorge forming groans Deneta has spoken? And who is tending the fields that hold the Tutadine of peace? And where is the sacred horizon from the morning star of strength? If I were to be the last testimony of memory, I would tether to the prayers and songs still lingering in the land. Oh, to be cleansed, purified by the essence of hard goods, a vertebrae for the land. I ascend to the cliff tops, carrying my soft goods, fragmented thoughts removed. At the doorway, I petition the sentinels for passage, for the weaponry of memory, recorded as the long walk of the Navajo, millions of neuron synapses when Huelde is spoken. Millions of tears flood arroyos, carrying away the debris from Fort Sumner, restoring strength like the rhythmic wefts of wool tamped down by a master weaver's caress. Peace. I am the generations of people, the ones that were prayed for to live in peace. I am the tempestuous arroyo sprouting, expansive as hardy seed, rooting in desert land. I am the embodiment of this year's planting season, my whole being drawing upon the strength, the stories, the hand-sewn strips of cloth and feeble rations reformed, the suffering removed. I am the receiver of blessings, extending the wind of Bela'ashla'i, prayers, offerings spoken over Deneh, over me, below me, above me, before me, behind me, beside me, inside memory. An arrow awakening my spine, synaptic screams, seared flesh, colonial clusters clogging memory. Oh, Oh, how I seek the fractured precious stones and suck, sharpening, scarring, polishing peace. Makers, oh, to be joined with the shed blood of Shidene, Shemasanado Shache Hono, Jene. They were attacked on all sides, Jene. The enemy looked like your neighbor, Jene. The land was scorched, cornfields, orchards, water holes destroyed, the people forcibly removed, captive. Some escaped to canyons, some perished, some walked in collective strength. The long walk to a military fort, 300 miles away from the boundary mountains, Zilil, buried deep in the marrow of the people, a repository of forgotten and folded memory, adornment of white shells, sparkling stone, and corn pollens, beauty not to be removed. The remaining earth I will walk. Its thoughts are my thoughts. Its peace is my peace. Its beauty is my beauty, with movement like a rainbow extending east to west over the land, over the emergence place where earth and sky meet. The original teachings are spoken. The original teachings bless. We live by the words that are spoken. We are the remnant restored. We carry the internal wind of prayers and actions of strength. We declare a new dawning, a piercing white sunbeam to emerge from a devastated land. Our hope is intertwined as a braided yucca leaf rope, a tannic testimony of memory, a stronghold, Hogan, a refuge from historic trauma, so-called agreements of peace, from this place of pity. We mark the earth, footprints, fallen warriors, firmament removed. Oh, Denebekeya, oh, enduring land, may you be healed with the daily prayers spoken. Oh, Shidene, may the captives' veils be removed. May the blessing way restore strength. Oh God, the Yin, may you keep us in your memory. Bind us with protective arrows of peace. Yeah.